Alright, we've got our mission in. We've got to get there fast. Oh no, lore. Whoopsie. The Veteran of Ombre is perhaps the most famous, if not respected, figure in the nation. As the leader of the registry, with an abode sitting at the tip of the White Spear, the entire city falls under their gaze. The influence that Verone has had over the city was in the times past unparalleled, but with the rise of the power of the guilds, the influence has begun to wane somewhat. So the Verone is basically the president. All the more apt because of the fact that, like, their powers becoming diminished over time and spread between these different factions. Well, that's kind of the opposite of the actual president, I guess, where oh my goodness. In real life, whoa, different menu entirely. So this is a case notes for investigation. In real life, the president started off being less powerful and became more powerful. So it's kind of the opposite, I suppose. But the similar concept applies in that there's a severe delineation of powers between different roles. So we have a missing persons of investigation for Razitov Azurus, 39 years old, occupation Regenti. Let's see. Inspector attached is Ofina Triana. Is that an inspector, basically, but in a word that I'm not used to reading? Maybe she'll become a party member if she's going to be investigating things with us. If I'm right about any of that. On the 39th of Revita, 407 IL, Regenti Razitov Azrus was tasked with the elucidating of the methods through which Mascherines were created. He was appointed this task by Verone Avestus Alarm. So if he was trying to figure out how to create Mascherines in the first place and he has disappeared, that must indicate that he probably was actually on his way to something and figuring something out if someone thought that they needed to stop him. On the 43rd of Revita, he submitted his first update to the Verone concerning his findings. In it, he writes that he believed that for something as core to the Dementicate civilization as Mascherines, there must be anthropological evidence regarding their existence and creation that he can find through detailed study of Dementicate history. He continues on, writing that a visit to the Conoscenza must be paid. He is sure to find what he needs there. A loose sheet found within his reports reveals what specifically he was in search for. Books that talk about the Dementicate and powers, about wielding immense power, creating power, using it to expand, or anything that even remotely smacks of strength or supremacy. These are good places to start. I will head to the Conoscenza tomorrow to speak with Kyrie. Alright, date of update, 30th. Is it the next day? Nope. That was 39th of Reville. So this could be the next month, basically, or something. Kyrie has said that Razitov never approached her for assistance. None of the Vegelists that I've spoken to have seen him around in the past month. He must have either done this work in secrecy or never followed it up on his original plan. Tomorrow I intend on returning to Conoscenza. Following his leads will bring me closer to his current whereabouts, I am certain. But then over a week later, note, the investigation has been handed over to Inspectore Corvus Gividis. Inspectore Ofina's corpse has been found in her room at approximately dusk on 33rd of Picat. Right, that's they found the bodies of two different people, and that was her. So not a party member. That was from the previous conversation. The investigation has taken a darker turn. Ages forbid, and it is growing steadily. Avestus has told me to focus on Razitov and to do so quietly. Whoever did that to Ofina is still out there. I do not know how well I will sleep at night knowing these halls are not safe, but the Verone has reminded me that if someone was out to stop us from finding Razitov, it must mean that he knows something. Avestus believes that the finding of Regenti is of higher priority than identifying Ofina's murderer. If I can find both along the way, that'd be ideal, but ages. I'll be the first to admit that I might have been put in waters too deep for me. I have spoken to Lucia and warned her about the treachery. If Ofina was a target, then none of us are safe. Darius, Pasha, and Riva aren't in the city at the moment, and for their sakes I am glad. Damn it, where is Cicero when you need him? No matter, I must focus. Tomorrow I will check Razatov's office. I think it is prudent to place to begin. At least it isn't in my poor friend's bloody footprints. I hope she gets a good song. Now this is how you do this right. You say in advance where you're going to go as often as possible because you might die before any update happens. This update happens the next day. Nothing. His office clearly doubled as his living quarters. He'd holed up himself inside there for quite some time. Or at least planned to, but there is nothing amiss. But then again, something didn't quite feel right, and when I was there... Something didn't quite feel right when I was there. In fact, something hasn't quite felt right since I started this investigation. Silent Songs and others always mocked my superstitious ways, but how can I deny a feeling so strong? I cannot put my finger on it, but I can swear by the ages that I am being watched. If anything is to happen to me, and if this case somehow falls into someone else's hands, I know that I advise caution. Lucia, if that next person is you, Songs, get out of here while you still can. Tomorrow I plan to figure out what it is exactly that has been causing the hairs on my neck to rise. Once I deal with that, I believe I'll be able to better focus on the task at hand. Was this 2 days later? The remains of Inspector Corvus's body have been found in his personal residence in Dimway. The investigation's pending action. So now 2 people investigating this are already dead, as we heard before. Next day, a letter has been sent to Cavalli Field, summoning former Inspector Cicero Gavar back to Ombre. So I've been called in specifically because they were both dead in the first place. Not the most encouraging thing for my first mission of the game. Several days later, I don't know, next month probably, however long it takes to get here, in a month called Sendera, the investigation has been handed over to former Inspector Cicero Gavar. And that's about all there is. Welcome back, he says. Well, crap. So this is my journal, and this is going to summarize our entire investigation that must be the central plot of the game, because it's got its own separate menu. And it's even divided into days. What was that other one? Was it about the dead? Rizitov Azra. So this is our missing person. This is the person we're trying to hunt down that was trying to figure out how to make Mascherines. So it's kind of a big deal to know about them. Never in my wildest imaginations had I ever thought that my relationship with this bespectacled friend of mine would turn out the way it did. Quiet and reserved, Razatov and I had first met in the Conoscenza while I had been preparing for the dreadful Accredita. I'm sure that's an exam. Messenza is my least favorite of all the media. Most things I've learnt on the streets, not between the pages of a book. Razatov, however, was quite the opposite, a lover of histories and theorems. I initially could not stand his presence. Facts and postulations seemed to bleed forth from every inch of his being, but from his head right down to the ends of his boots. He'd seen me struggling with the calculus section of the paper I'd been working on. In one of the deeper and more isolated sections of Conoscenza, I was attempting to at least, for my accredita the following day, and he could barely keep it to himself. You need to use Roderick's theorem for that. His voice was thin, reed-like, and left the silence of the Conoscenza quite untouched. Excuse me? I said, turning to my left, where he sat. The image, to this day, I recall with perfection. A soft hat far too large for his head, small speckles perched atop a thin nose. He pulled back slightly. Perhaps I'd spoken too loudly, offended the silence he might have found sacred. I said, he said. I said, he said. Even softer than before. Roderick's theorem. Roderick's theorem. What did he think I was, a scholar? Here, he said, inching a little closer before coming to a stop. He held out his hand. It quivered a little. If I may? Be my guest, I said, pushing over my quill and my papers to him. Now, he said, and he began to explain the process to solve the equation. I couldn't repeat the steps to you now if I tried, but enough of that technique stayed in my mind that I passed that section of the Accredita the day after. What surprised me even more, though, was that he'd come for the ceremony that evening. He sought me out after it ended. "Cicero," he'd said from behind, just as I was leaving the hall. I turned and recognized him immediately. "Razatov, what are you doing here?" I came to see how you did," he replied as he wrung his hands. I found that curious. Why would he care? "I did fine. I passed," I replied, still somewhat wary. "What did he want from me?" "Oh," he said as he breathed out, clearly relieved. "Excellent news. Just excellent. Why?" I asked, frowning. "Why excellent? Why not? I was hoping you'd do well. See, I know it might sound selfish, but I was hoping that I'd been good enough tutor last night, and here you are, passing. I was so worried about you when you told me of your credit was today with your calculus at that standard. Ages, did you need help? All right. Did you need help? All right. And now you've done fantastic. I knew you could do it. I just did." And that was the moment I began to believe that beneath that blustering exterior, behind all those books and theorems and ideas, lay a heart among the most sincere I would come to know. And that belief has been proven true time and time again. And now he's missing. Now, for perhaps the first time in my life, I am in a position to help him and not the other way around. I have to find him. There we go. See, some people don't like it when I read everything in these games, but there's so much extra meaning to glean from some of the stuff. So from the extra reading, not only do we know that he's the person that's trying to reconstruct Mascherines, literally saving our society, well, arguably saving our society in one way or another, saving us from outside forces at the very least, but also we have a specific history with them, and he's actually a close friend, and you wouldn't even know that if you just kept walking. You probably find that out later in different ways, but it's definitely a different texture to glean now. Also, by the way, considering we're going to spend a lot of time in this screen, this is really well made. Like, one of my biggest grievances is that there's a lot of games right now that have codexes. I think, what were the bad ones? It was done poorly in Witcher 3, it was done poorly in Dragon Age Inquisition. I think it might have also been done poorly in Deus Ex Human Revolution or Mankind Divided, one or the other or both. There's a specific thing you never want to do in a screen like this, which is they make them navigatable by scrolling up and down on a screen. And then, like, when you're scrolling around, just highlighting certain codexes makes them automatically get selected. And when they get automatically selected, they automatically get marked as red. But sometimes you're just scrolling down, and particularly in the case of Witcher 3, you had to scroll down a vertical list in order just to try to get to the person you're looking for. But you might accidentally pass over codex entries of other people, and they would all get marked as red, and then you wouldn't know that you hadn't read them yet. And also led to an issue where you could only scroll by pressing down over and over again, but once you're at the bottom of the screen, now you can only highlight everything as it comes into view, which means that you can't even tell whether you've read stuff or not, because the act of highlighting it by scrolling it would mark it as red, which make the icon disappear that tells you it's new in the first place before you even get a chance to recognize that it's there. I'm pretty sure it was Witcher that screwed that up. I think it was also Dragon Age. A lot of games screw that up. In Dragon Age, they also had a problem where they had a grid like this, but they made all these really detailed pictures for all the codex entries, and then like a tiny, tiny icon in the corner would say them that they were unread, but it was so small that you could easily go past it without seeing it. And it had the problem where it was a grid of stuff like this, but still had the Witcher problem where when you were scrolling down, you would instantly highlight stuff and instantly mark them as red without actually reading them or even noticing you marked them as red. So codex entries, despite being something that has so much work and detail and writing put into them in so many games, have been kind of a travesty in a lot of different games as far as being able to keep track of which ones you have and haven't read.
Survived the trial, I see.
Barely. The bastard's still as oily as ever.
Careful. Walls have ears. So, was I right?
This is about the Regenti that's gone missing. Razatov.
That's the one? Didn't he...
Save my life? Yes. Hephaestus used that against me.
So now you're on the case too.
Any advice then?
Just... try not to die. We've lost enough inspectores as is.
You can bet on that. Now, I need to read these notes first. Then to the Hall of Bearings for a masquerine. Still have time to accompany an old friend?
Why not?
There you go. Instead of being redundant information, you get different information between the codex entries and the dialogue, where the codex entries talk to you about your long history with this character and how you met back when you were studying and when you were a student, and he helped you through school and genuinely cared about helping you and stuff like that. And then in the dialogue, we've discovered that he literally saved your life at some point, although the context for that has yet to be given in its entirety. Because one of the bummers would be if you did something like read that kind of information, then immediately get told that information in a conversation a second later.
My brother is missing. At least let me speak to the Valencio.
Your color isn't welcome here.
A member of the Blue Guild. Here.
A curious sight indeed. You can take care of yourself?
I'm not a child, Tristan.
Really?
Get out.
Interesting. So he's dressed as a Blue Guild member, and that means he can't come through here. But he's trying to report a missing person. The Samora and Guild politics. The 6 guilds of Ombre are collectively known as the Samora, so that's also a new detail, isn't it? I don't think we knew before that all the guilds were called the Samora. Maybe we did know that. One of the good things about all these codex entries is that it also reinforces concepts you've heard before, so you can reconnect them, because at first you're just throwing names at you, and you're like, okay, those are names, they sure are names, and then then you get more in-depth about the relationship between the names, and they start to make more sense in your head. That's what's really confusing about playing, like I've been playing World of Warcraft Legion lately, and I'm completely lost, because it's just, the names are at war with the names, and I hate the names, but what about the names? And then they're covered in names. I'm like, okay, sure, I have a great anchor point here. That's why so many stories have a protagonist that's an outsider, or somebody who's been gone for a while, or has amnesia. And we're doing that here. We're somebody who's been out of town for a while, because it helps you contextualize stuff to some extent. The 6 guilds of Ombre are collectively known as the Samora, and they comprise the Sorel de Mar, the Lusa Infinita, the Libera Solis, and the Altus Nobilis, the DC Silvrani, and the Calculatori. Though these are certainly by no means the only guilds the city has ever known, these are the only ones that have withstood the whittling test of time, and together with the registry make up all of the Masquerada of the city. Despite their commonality in possessing Mascherines, however, the Samora are rife with disagreements, and the politics that course between them are far too convoluted to spell out simply. Suffice to say, it is nearly impossible to bring all the Samora together in a single room without having them at each other's throats. Hopefully not literally, or you're going to lose some of those Mascherines. That's like the specific problem we're trying to avoid. There's no one guarding the staircase anymore. Oh, it just stops here. Thought there might be something up there, like a hidden conversation or something. Nope. There's someone. The Hall of Bearings. This is the path to the masks, isn't it? After the registry began recognizing the guilds of Ombre and established the rules of their relationship, its collection of Mascherines grew steadily. For a long time, these Mascherines had been paid to the registry as tribute to the guilds, had been stored in various caches all over the city. When the Pale Isle was claimed and the White Spire built, these Mascherines were transported to a hall that the registry had constructed specifically for the storage of these Mascherines, the Hall of Bearings.
Inspectore.
At ease.
I was not told to expect you, sir.
I don't suppose you were. But here I am, and I need a masquerine.
Right this way, sir. I do apologize in advance. Our selection of masquerines has diminished since the war began.
It's all right. I'm not picky.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I'd like a masquerine now, please.
All right. First things first. Your element, sir.
Cyrus? What are you doing?
Sir?
What? I apologize. What was the question?
Your element.
Right. Of course.
Well, how's that for a development? Apparently Are we being plagued by the memory of our own brother? Is he a specter? Is he real or is he imaginary? So you can see all the masks floating around. Some of them have the really ridiculous plague doctor bird nose. Some of them are just eye masks. Some of them are full face masks. So we can pick one of these 4 elements. Fire. We have the gifts to burn and smelt, to set a flame pyres for his glory. Earth. And shape the soils to raise the earth, to feed our strength and fashion temples. Water. And seas will roar, and clouds will cry, not for broken heart, but to pay obeisance, or something like that. Air. And the winds will carry our tale through the lands, to hearts of foes to spread his reign. Okay, so we need to pick an element that all of our magic's gonna be based on. Our brother was a water user, as we saw before. We can pick fire, earth, water, or air. We don't seem to get a lot of context for these decisions. And I'm a little worried that clicking on them won't bring up more information, but will instead just lead to picking one. So I think I might sort of alt-tab and do a little research if I can. So I think I'm going to go with Earth. Earth appears to be some kind of AoE specialist, and it seems like that could help out a lot in situations where you're outnumbered or outgunned and stuff like that. But it's a little hard to make the call, and I think ultimately we're still probably going to get a series of party members that have different elemental masks, and they can complement me either way, much like class choices in traditional games. Or like, I'm a warrior, but it's fine, I'll have rogues and mages that I can complement my character with, is generally how this kind of goes. But Earth seems like a good pick, although I generally would like to play with all of them. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll get characters that just have all of them, and then it won't really matter that much. Oh, look at that. There is a bit more description to it. The ubiquity of stone and soil lends itself favorably to the Earthbrand's abilities of allowing them to mold the landscape upon which many conflict is set. Through the creation of hazardous areas in the battlefield, Earthbrands have unrivaled manipulation of the flow of any battle. So it is problem areas, basically. The Firebrands of Ombre tread the fine line between blazing brightly and burning out. Their unmatched inclination towards destruction often leaves them the target of many a foe's offense, but the best Firebrands have learned how to draw strength from the maelstrom of chaos around them. With versatile ability suited for any scenario, the strength of Waterbrands lies in their fluid adaptability and their potential to shift the tides of battle in a myriad ways. One moment, a Waterbrand could be bolstering their abilities, the next summoning spikes of ice to impale their foes. Air. Like the very wind that bends to their will, the position of an air brand in the midst of a battle is unpredictable. Those who dance on gales and bend the breezes are constantly in motion, and are armed with the abilities that cripple and displace those that attempt to obstruct their currents. Alright, I'm sure they're all valid. And ultimately, I think you still have to play as one for a while to get a full understanding of what their capabilities are in general. But I do like the idea of having damage or bad zones that I can summon to affect the battle.
I'm an Earthbrand.
And the last time you used a Masquerine?
5 years.
Vamus tests?
Distinctions.
Accreditor?
60th percentile. Explains why I didn't turn out to be one of the Vegelers.
All right, sir. It'll take me no more than a heartbeat.
I need the Mascherines, Cicero. You're its custodian, and you're an imposter. Going around with that stupid cape of yours? Have you forgotten where your loyalty...
Are you almost done, Valis?
Just finished, sir.
You don't know what you've started, brother. Change. That's what. Change for the Contadani, our people.
Here it is, sir.
Come with me. Come with me, Cicero. No.
Sir?
Thank you, Valis.
And there it is, we've got ourselves a mask. And we've got skill points. Alright, let's see what these buttons do. So so this is our first mask. It seems like we might get more over time. Cicero casts an aura that reduces the attack and movement speed of nearby enemies. Quagmire. Is that a skill? Of Earthen Blade. Strikes the target enemy with an earth-imbued blade that activates elemental tags. Then Quagmire. Oh, that's the Q ability. Yeah, that's the aura that reduces the attack and movement speed of nearby enemies. And you can scroll through all your characters here, and it looks like there's a lot of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4... There's 4 total party members. So I'm sure they represent each of the 4 elements. And then I'll be a duplicate with one of them inevitably. You can almost guess who some of them might be based on these silhouettes, because they already have predetermined silhouettes instead of generic ones. Party behavior. Ooh. You can teach your characters what they're going to do in situations. Okay, so I can tell them to cast Earthen Blade, for example. Let's see. Oh yeah, it activates elemental tags, not just earthen ones specifically. So I can program him to attack anyone with an elemental tag. Mask charge threshold. What does that mean? You can go up to 100%. You can disable AI control to make them not do anything when you're not controlling them. Alright, there's options here. Interesting. Why isn't there a Quagmire thing on here? It's weird that Earthen Blade is on here, but not Quagmire? Maybe you have to use the Q abilities manually. Mask charge threshold. Is that the mask charge? It costs 120. 500 out of... Let's see. I assume the mask charge threshold probably works like mana conversation. Did I just say conversation? Conservation, like in a Dragon Age Inquisition, where you would say, keep your character above 40% mana, and they would not spend it past that point. That's probably what it means, is my best guess, but right now we have nothing to do on this screen. It's lacking elements at the moment. Now we have skills to look at. Okay. So we can upload, this is Maestro. Passive skill. Cicero gains focus, health, and mask charge regeneration. He also gains an attack and movement speed boost. Reduced skill cooldowns and take less damage. Wow, that's a lot of passives right there. So all of his stuff regenerates, he can use skills more frequently, and he dies less quickly. Seems like an all-encompassing passive then. I wonder if every other skill's not passive? We'll see. Let's see. The signature attack strikes the target enemy with an earth-imbued blade and activates elemental tags. We know that much, but what about the additional stuff? Okay, so you can click on each of these without immediately picking them. So, whether a non-elemental tag is activated, the target will be forced to attack them for a duration of time. So he can basically... Oh, a non-earth elemental tag is activated. So he can taunt somebody who's been afflicted by somebody else's attacks to make them attack this character specifically and not change targets. Whenever an earth tag is activated, Cicero gains focus and mask charge. Okay. So he definitely fills a tanking role with this subclass a little bit. Dust Devil causes the ground to shake, dealing damage to nearby enemies. Therefore, thereafter 3 twisters appear which deal damage to enemies they collide with. The skill generates more threat than usual. So we've had 2 implications of threat already, so he definitely seems to be somebody who gets people's attention. Let's see. Shake the ground, damage enemies, create 3 twisters. That's a really fun sounding skill, actually. So it's an AoE threat grab. Evensong conjures a pool of mud at the target location. All enemies caught within range move slower and take damage over time. Almost like the equivalent of an acid pool, really, because of the damage part. Fissure performs a series of successive attacks. As the caster charges forward, dealing damage to all enemies in their path. Could be useful for closing the gap if you're trying to get in the middle of the fray. Flint Bolt throws a piece of sharp flint that pierces through multiple enemies. That's also fun. Mud Drake summons 2 indestructible mud-spewing mud drakes at the target location. A mud drake deals damage periodically to enemies within its range. Also, it's a mud drake. That's pretty cool. Tremor channels a powerful quake that deals damage to all enemies within range. The skill generates more threat than usual. That sounds rather comparable to Dust Devil. This is a shake followed by 3 twisters. And this is just a straight up quake. So it sounds like I have 2 AoE attacks I can use. And because of a lack of numbers and range delineations, we don't necessarily know what their exact value is and stuff like that. So I'm going to default to learning the coolest looking things first. Dust Devil seems neat. I'm going to learn Dust Devil. Mud Drake seems neat. I'm going to... Wait. I thought I had 4 points. Do I not have 4 points? Could have sworn that they said I had 4 points. I made a mistake then. That's fine. Dust Devil. I'll get Mud Drake next time I level up or something, because those seem cool too. Yeah, looking at this, you can, you can upgrade Dust Devil to give everybody who gets hit by it an earthen tag, which sets them up for triggers. And you can increase the duration of the twisters. This seems fun. Okay. And we're back in control. Now I want to see a fight happen so I can test out my new skill. Which is a terrible thing to say. Press C to open the skills menu. Which is what I've done already. Oh god. Yes. 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 Oh, right. That's a good point, actually. You made a good point, video game. I should drag skill onto thing. Did I hit OK or did I click a tutorial on accident? If I clicked a tutorial on accident, my bad.
And there he is.
Who's this?
Calden Azarus, mariner of the Citte del Mare.
You're Calden?
You know him?
Yes, no, well, Razatov mentioned that he had a brother before, but he never said very much.
You knew my brother?
Is there a reason why he's here?
I know my brother's missing. Inspector Corvus came to me 2 weeks ago.
All right, well, I'm sorry.
It's not that, Inspector. I want to help find my brother in any way I can.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into. You haven't heard anything from Corvus because he's dead.
What?
Listen, Calden. Sail the winds back to your guild while you can. You don't want this.
Why?
Because this is not the business of the Blue Guild. And if any within the White Spires see you with me...
All right, then. I suppose all I can ask is that when you find him, please, I'd like to know.
You were just going to let him go?
What?
It's his brother, Cicero.
Mariner! I'd like to at least ask you a few questions first.
Of course.
Oh, this'll rub the old man the wrong way.
All the more reason to do it. Now that both of you are settled, I have business to attend to.
Thank you, Valencio.
Have fun, you two.
Inspector, I must...
A few questions does not guarantee you a place in this investigation, Mariner. I'd like to make that clear.
Clear as the belt, sir.
Good. Now, we're headed for your brother's office. I'd like to ask you a few things on the way.
It doesn't guarantee you anything at all. Now, welcome to the party. It keeps saying skill points are available. Oh. Wow, he actually did join my party. I was kind of joking, but he genuinely joined. So Dust Devil auto-added itself, probably because I haven't hit 4 skills yet. New party member, Calden Azarus. This is going to be a very skill-heavy episode, but let's learn about this tree now. What does he have exactly? Is this wind or water? Water, yep, water spout. Let's see, so his passive reduces all damage the caster takes, and their attacks generate more threat. Interesting. That's almost a duplicate that they also have a threat generating thing, where this character has something that lets him get regeneration, basically, and a speed boost. These are kind of all over the place, aren't they? The water spout. He blasts an enemy with spout of water, activates tags. Atmos Ring conjures 2 spheres of water that rotate around the caster, raising their threat. Whenever a sphere passes through an ally, it restores health to that ally. That's cool. Each sphere can pass through an ally 5 times before expiring, so it's an AoE threat heal. That's multifaceted right there. Hope Spring. Calden releases an energy pulse to restore focus to himself and nearby allies and taunts nearby enemies. Alright. Redoubt. Calden stomps the ground to conjure a flood that damages nearby enemies. Sorel's Ward. Calden gains an aura that reduces incoming damage and absorbs some damage taken by nearby allies. Ooh. Shields damage to himself and absorbs allied damage is kind of a big deal. Tidal Wall. Conjures a strong tide that builds into pillars of water to deal damage. Skill generates more than usual, sure. I like Sorel's Ward, seems really cool, probably gonna grab that. But Atmosphere just sounds cool, and I want to have it. So I'll grab the other one next, just like the Drake situation. That one sounds really useful, but this seems really cool. An AoE, yeah. A threat, damage, heal, spinning attack. Seems neat. We'll see how that goes. And we got another one. Here's Kalden. Yeah, he must be a... Wow, yeah, he's a big deal for this game. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that he's a main character. Yeah, look at this. We established there's 4 remaining characters in my party that I haven't met yet. And right here you have Kalden, Azris, Tiziana de Felici, Amadea Invidius, and Vasco Tessitore. And then it goes to members of Registry and a bunch of other factions and groups and everything. So these first 4 are people's names. So presumably those are the 4 party members we're going to get over the course of the game. Kalden we get first, these 2 we get later, and this person apparently we get significantly later because they have very few codex entries. Kalden Azarus 1. I find it almost unbelievable that I know so little about this man, considering the friendship that I've fostered with his brother. It would seem likely that we've exchanged words about this Kalden before, but yet, despite all that, I could barely remember Razatov saying anything of him. He's told me that he'd a brother before, surely, but scarcely anything more. Who is this enigma of a sibling, who's been shadowed by secrecy? Perhaps I was too hasty in attempting to dismiss him. Perhaps there is more to this investigation he can offer. And that's apparently going to be true, because it sure looks like he's probably a party member for the rest of the game. What popped down here? Oh, right, scrolling. Skill points! As you progress through the game, you require skill points. Used to upgrade things. Yeah, it's all straightforward. First is always passive. Double click or click on the thing to spend. Cycle through party members. Yeah, this is all pretty normal. Oh, skill points of all characters can be reassigned by visiting the training grounds outside the estuary, in which you can test skills of your party members freely. There we go, that's a little bit useful. Everything else is pretty much... it's really basic explanations, though. Alrighty then. Hello, new friend. Welcome to the crew. Try not to get yourself killed.
So, fill me in. When was the last time you saw your brother?
Well,
Memory failing you already?
half a Missouri ago.
2 years. My.
So a Missouri is 4 years. Why do they have these intervals of... What? I'm wondering what the significance of that interval is. Is a Missouri the length of a term of government? Is it the... There must be something about the society that changes every 4 years. Otherwise, why measure anything in 4 years? Unless that's something crazy that I'm an ignorant American about, and it's actually a term that exists, and I'm just don't know. And all these menu options are just... Alright, so these all exist now. We've established what every single one of these buttons is supposed to be. Good.
And the last time you wrote him a letter, then?
We don't write to each other.
No? This is it. His office.
Finally.
Just a moment, Mariner.
Something the matter, Inspectore?
Yes, in fact. You.
Me?
You, Razatov's brother, whom I have heard so little from him about, who last saw him 2 years ago, and during those years you never spoke or wrote to him whatsoever. And now you're suddenly concerned?
Correct.
And you ask if there's something the matter?
Inspectore, the relationship I have with my brother is complicated, but he is still my brother. And if you doubt my concern for him...
I doubt your honesty. Are you certain you know as little about the cases you claim?
Yes. I assure you, on a mariner's moon, I promise, there is nothing I want more than to find my brother.
Let's go in. Here, let's see what we can find.
Hello. Case notes. The investigation has taken an interesting turn. Rezdov's brother, Khaldan Azris, has been inserted into the picture. He is hiding something, and I wonder what. Perhaps keeping him around wasn't such a bad idea after all, he says again. Okay. And another update. I'm trying to keep an eye on their lip sync, because it seems like they actually nailed... I only just started looking at the very end there, but they might have actually nailed lip syncing in a way that a lot of the games I've been playing lately don't seem to at all. The Registry Regenti. The world of academia belongs to Vegelus, but the realm of politics is the domain of the Regenti. These are the members of the registry who keep the country in balance, both within and without the walls of the city. They are responsible for reading the economies and controlling as much as possible the ebb and flow of power within the city. The Regenti are certainly closer to Verone's heart compared to the Portieri and the Vegelus, and are the first he turns to when he requires the handling of sensitive matters. If those matters are deemed too sensitive for the Regenti, they are handed off to the Inspectores, and that's how we are here.